by first describing the contours of your district, meaning like what area you're trying to you're seeking to represent, and then telling us a little bit about your biography and why it is you're seeking this office. 3 to 5 minutes of intro should be great.
Yeah, and you can just go.
Yeah, I'll let you know we're carrying on.
Let it go. My name is Darcy Edwards, and the area that I am seeking to represent is District 31. It's got a mix. It's got some rural areas, very rural areas, and some areas that are more urban. So it is basically Columbia County, almost all of Columbia County, down to Linton, and then over to Gaston, North Plains, Banks, all the way over to Vernonia.
Yep.
So it's kind of a wonky little district.
Beautiful country.
Yeah, gorgeous. Lots of rural areas. And I grew up in the district my whole life. So I've never moved off really my property that I grew up on as a little girl. It's actually technically Buxton. And so the reason I'm running for this position is a few different things had happened. My son got addicted to fentanyl during COVID. And so having things available for families and people with addiction issues is high on my list. Economic development, there's areas in my district that want manufacturing, they want the housing, they want the growth, and then we have the other side that doesn't. And then the final reason why I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna do it, is our sawmill in Banks closed. And that was directly due to some legislation that went, well, I don't even know if it was legislation that went through, but basically it closed down logging in state forest. And it's Tillamook Forest, which is next to my district. So not that I don't trust the government to take care of things correctly, but I just don't trust the government to take care of things correctly.
So this is the district that was previously, or still is, represented by Brian Stout.
Correct.
Things have not gone so great for Brian Stout. Can you speak to what your experience of that is?
I have no experience with that, because it's clear on the other side of the world from me. He's retiring out, and that's where I leave it. It's just, he's retiring, I'm gonna run for this position. I don't know any super details. Didn't call him and ask him.
You met the man?
Oh, I met him, yeah,
okay.
Several times.
Is he endorsing you?
Not necessarily.
Well, yes or no?
Yeah, but a lot of people are.
Okay. That's just not necessarily as an odd answer. I'm not sure I understood what happened there.
I don't hang out with him, let's just say that. It's very peripheral, oh hi, kind of thing at something. So we're not hanging out.
So it sounds like he's endorsing you, but you would like to keep your distance from him.
What's in the past is past, and has nothing to do with me at all.
Okay. All right. Tell me a little bit more about your family circumstances that led you to seek office. Your son got addicted to fentanyl during the pandemic. How'd that happen?
So the schools are closed, right? And I'm guessing this is what happened. I'm not positive. He's not around for me to ask him that question. I did ask him if it was okay for me to share our story, and he said yes. So I did get permission from him for that. The schools were closed down. He's a very social person, and I could watch him spin out in depression and just go off the deep end. And it happened to many, many children that I know. He was a junior, senior in high school, junior and senior, so it was during those two times. And I watched kids that were 4.0 on their way to college, doing the thing, and it just spun them out. And so when we figured out he was addicted, we went and tried to get him some help. I was quoted $17,000 a month to have him go to rehab, which I think for any person that's a barrier to help of any kind. And it was and by the way, we need it up front. Also, we don't take insurance. So to me, it's a racket, the addiction, you know, corporate machine. And he ended up leaving our home and just taking off. And so I actually really went downtown Portland looking for him because I knew that's where he was. So I've walked these streets asking people on the street if they'd seen my son, and talked to them and found out what their story was. And, you know, I'm a mom, so my heart goes out to those people that are there. And, you know, the thing I would get most often was, oh my gosh, I really wish my mom would come find me. And I said, well, a couple times I go, well, you remember that time you told your mom you never wanted to talk to her again? She's honoring that. I just don't honor that in my kid. I will hunt them down to find them. And so that's kind of where we went. And it's really hard to find help for families. It's really hard to find help for people in general who have that disorder. And it's a tough disorder. And once you're on it, it's really, and it was cheap. It's a really super cheap drug. I don't know, is it 80 cents maybe? It's probably like 50 cents now for a pill.
Are you under the impression he's still on the streets of Portland?
I know about where he's at, but it's not in Oregon.
Not in Oregon, okay. Well, policy-wise, what did that, I mean, it's a devastating story and I'm sorry, but policy-wise, what did that teach you?
Addiction is very, very complicated because it goes hand in hand with mental health issues. They are married at the hip sometimes. And what I had found is that Oregon, on the mental health side and on the addiction helping side, we're like number 48 in the country. I'm sure we could figure out something better that's going to help these people to get back on track. And that's one of the reasons that I would want to represent this district. There's a lot of people who have the same story I do. I'm pretty open about it. There's a lot of people that live in shame of that.
Sure. What was your impression of the compromise bill the legislature passed 4002? Would you have voted for it?
Is that the one where it kind of
recriminalized after the reversal of Measure 110 to some extent?
Some extent. I'm going to be honest. Like, I've heard the stories of the best, you know, they're going to go through treatment or go in and out of treatment about 7 times. Do I think that there should be, like, jail sometimes is enough time for them to get the right mind? I know that happened for my son a couple of times. He was like really lightly in jail, but it was enough time for him to get clear that we could have a conversation. And, you know, we could maybe make the next step to get you into help if there's no place to put you. One of the other problems that I think we have with this whole thing is that there's some addiction centers that are waiting for permitting, but there's like 120 beds ready to go, but they're just waiting for permitting from like Multnomah County. So I know how long those can take, and that's one of the things that I think we need to speed up, is being able to get these places where people who have the addiction thing get that handled, and the mental health. We got to take care of those people too who have a mental health issue, because laying them on the street is not an answer. It's not compassion. In fact, it's the opposite of compassion. So finding a way to help those people is imperative.
Would you have voted for House Bill 4002?
I probably would have been harder on it. But I mean, that's the negotiation they can make to get something. I want to go after the cartel, to be honest. That's who's on my sights, of making it that type of distribution, going up and down I-5, though, finding those people who are legitimate criminals and having something strong for them.
Sure. There's a task force that's both federal and state, is my understanding, that is supposed to do that. Whether it's achieving it or not, I don't know.
I can tell you where they are. They're over in Gresham. I'm like, do you want me to take you to the cartel's house or what?
Right. I'm assuming that you're not running for the legislature seeking to pick up a gun and go to their house. So,
no.
What is it that you would do for that task force to help them crack down on these cartels?
maybe be able to have inter county, district, or whatever conversations where they're all working together. Because people, I mean, I'm guessing if you're a criminal, you're going in and out. You're not sticking in one spot for very long. And so being able to have information that goes back and forth between courthouses and between police and that task force, so they can kind of see what the real area is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Forgive me, and you may have mentioned this in your brief introduction, but can you tell me about your professional and public service background?
Sure. I am a realtor. I've been a realtor for 12 years. So I do know something about the housing crisis.
Yeah, no doubt.
And land use. Let's not get, okay, we won't get me on that little story. And I've belonged to chambers for my whole career. So I've done a lot of volunteer work, worked in different areas throughout my career and my lifetime.
Great. We talked already about an endorsement that you're not that thrilled about. What endorsement are you most proud to have received?
Oh, wow. There's actually several that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of the endorsement from the egg community because of the fact that...
Did you say egg as an EGG?
Agriculture, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm very farm logger oriented, so agriculture.
Sorry.
And loggers and those type of people those are I'm most proudest of because of the fact that they're kind of a dying breed of people and just salt of the earth and great people. Okay. So I'm proud of that.
What's the first bill you'd introduce in Salem?
One of them would be to get through the permitting stage a lot faster.
For housing?
Yeah. Okay. So like I will use an example. Sometimes it can take up to 3 years just to do like a land lot adjustment, which is nothing. It's really, actually it used to be like a 20-minute form you filled out. You went to the clerk, they looked at it, they did their mapping, they're like, you're good to go. And now it's taking like up to 3 years. So that's what's a big stall on housing is that permitting period, because you can technically take as long as you want. There's no time frame on that. And I've introduced something around the 90-day mark. Mm-hmm. And then if they have to extend it, they have to extend it for whatever reason.
So Senator Betsy Johnson, former Senator Betsy mm-hmm. Johnson, has been representing, not in the seat obviously, but has been representing this area for time immemorial. And I think it'd be fair to say that she in some ways represents the political center of this state, and has like become almost shorthand for the political center of this state. And with her gone from the upper chamber, there's a vacuum. How does that vacuum get filled?
Good question. I think people have to step up and go to that level. I do know Betsy personally. Betsy did something for me 23 years ago. My daughter was being adopted through DHS and it was going off the rails, and her staff actually would call me quarterly. So she is a great example of what to do. I've sat in meetings with her or just at like an event, and people will like pull up a chair and just like, hey Betsy, do you have like 2 minutes? And she's like, yeah. And she gets her notepad out and her pen and she takes notes on what people are asking her, and she legitimately listens to them and she legitimately sends them information. So if we all could do that, I think that's where you get that vacuum filled.
Can you offer an example of given that you are a Republican, it's a Republican district by a significant margin, I think. But can you offer an example of a place where you have reached across the aisle and worked with Democrats?
Absolutely. Because I belong to the chamber in Washington County, you come along everybody. And so Senator Salmon, I've known her for years and years and years. We actually did a China trip from a chamber 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. Nathan Sosa is one of my good friends. Mm-hmm. And so I have no problem stepping aside or across an aisle to listen to somebody's thought process. I think you have to do that because that's the only way you learn is by listening more, talk less. And so I have a good rapport on both sides.
Is there a place where you would break ranks with the Republican Party caucus on their platform?
It would have to depend on what crazy thing they're.
Sure, but I'm looking for a place where you can demonstrate a little independence from the party line. Not asking necessarily to go more liberal than the party line. I'm just saying, like, tell me a place in which, like, you don't see yourself as, like, being in lockstep with the caucus.
Not lockstep with anyone, ever. So, I mean, they have. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that I'm vehemently opposed to. I think we're pretty close on some things. And I think that's actually, to be honest, most Republicans and Democrats agree on about 80% of the same things. So it's finding those areas where we can agree and, you know, if there's a disagreement, figure out how to get around that.
Sure. Lucas?
Well, so when we interviewed you back in April, I think for the primary, right? So you told us a different story then about how you got into this race. I think it was you'd been asked by someone to join, and I don't think we got many details about that. But I hadn't heard the story about your son, and so like I just
that was happening to go while that was.
It was happening while that was.
Oh yeah, it's
okay.
Well, it's ongoing.
It's okay.
It's forever, you know, until they're clean. But yeah, that was happening kind of during that time, and I did go to my son after I said yes, and I said, you know, I want to help you, but like, is it okay to share your story? And he's like, he goes, yeah. He goes, yeah. Maybe that's the only thing that I can give you. So.
Got it.
Yeah. Here's an uncomfortable question that I have to ask. Did Joe Biden win the election in 2020?
I answered this before. I don't even care. It's not my thing. I'm not one of those Republicans. So if you want to say that that's the one where I don't toe the party line, I don't.
So you're not stop the steal, is what you're saying?
I don't care. Yeah. I'm just. We have to really focus on Oregon. That's what I'm really focused on. And since Oregon really doesn't matter in a presidential anyway, I'm very focused on our local government. I'm focused on what we can do here. I know nationally, I have people that are like, they're so concerned about that. And I go, great, but you know, you have an issue right here. You have some people that are hurting over here that need help. Let's focus on that.
Okay, but I'm going to ask one more time.
Okay.
Who won in 2020?
Whoever took it.
Okay.
I may have even wrote my name in. So that tells you how much I cared about it.
All right. Is there anything we haven't asked you about that you'd like to talk about?
Housing, maybe, because it is a crisis. And I literally was just at it was the I'm trying to think of the name of it. The Oregon Real Estate, like their economic summit, and the governor spoke there, and she's got a hefty, goal to have these units built. However, our land use laws are so tight that it makes that really difficult, and it makes it really difficult for certain cities. So there's like a parameter to get those things done quicker, I guess, push through maybe. And they can change some land use laws for very specific criteria state or areas, and like nothing in Washington, Multnomah, Clackamas, probably even Columbia County would be able to utilize that. So we need to go and make that a little more open. And one of the things that I get asked probably every week, I get a phone call of, Darcy, all I need is what I hear. Darcy, all I need is 3 acres or 2 acres. And all I want to do is just put myself and, my mom and dad are a little bit older, but we don't want them in our house. They don't want to be in our house. And then my daughter and her kids, and, so people want that generational, multi-people living situation, and we need to find an answer for that because it's common. I probably get that every week, that question.
Is there a way the legislature can make the construction of that sort of housing easier?
I think getting those permits through faster, maybe making them, and that's also the other part of it, is it's inexpensive. You know, to start a house in Hillsborough is $70K in permits, just that. So I think those are barriers to getting things done a little bit quicker. You have a strike right now, like that's, you know, with the dock workers. That's when those prices go up, right? And that makes another barrier for things to not move as quickly. So being able to get either your permits done a little bit quicker, being able to maybe even get tax breaks if you can do more on your property. I know most cities do that, oh, you can put a tiny home in your backyard or a 5-unit townhouse or whatever. But to get that really done, it's super expensive. So like to put a tiny house in your backyard, to go through all this super, the permitting and all that, you're at about $150K. And that, I think it's up from there. That was like a couple years ago number. So making those kinds of things easier to get through and maybe not so expensive so that real people can actually, not just developers can start things, but that real people can start that process of, having a place for their family members or loved ones.
Oh, sure. You mean like we're talking mostly about like ADUs, right? Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so
we're on the same page on that one. Like anything that the state can do to expedite the building of that kind of housing is obviously a win.
Yeah, but it's in the same lot as a house.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just
classically it was referred to as a mother-in-law apartment, right? Like I'm not sure that we're allowed to say that anymore, but it's what it is.
ADU is perfect.
Yeah.
It's a perfect description for that. But like people like me, there's 38 acres, I can have one house. So that makes like 0 sense. So those kinds of things.
Good.
Yeah.
We have a fun question.
Okay.
And the fun question is, what were you best known for in high school?
Oh my gosh. Probably my whole life is talking too much. I spent first and second grade literally in the hall. They took my desk and put it in the hall because I talked too much. And I remember the first day of school, I went home to my mom and I go, you said that this was going to be fun. It is not fun. And so I kind of was always a talker and pretty active, social, super social. Just anything to get me out of class.
They put your desk in the hallway?
Legit. Like, took the desk out. I know, for me, I thought it was fabulous because I'm looking in at this, and they're all working. I literally went outside. Okay, this is 70s, so just keep that in mind. And I'd go out and play on the playground. And I think back, I'm like, I could have totally been kidnapped or whatever. But it was a little country school. So, they're like, yeah, she's fine. But
that's a great answer. That might be my favorite answer.
It was fun. I mean, my mom said this is supposed to be fun, and clearly people don't know how to make this fun. So.
Well, we really appreciate you coming in. A lot of Republicans won't give us the time of day, and the fact that you came in and had a conversation
Absolutely.
with us, we really appreciate.
Well, and I appreciate you did some stories that I'm like, you know what? Thank you. Nobody else did them, but like on the governor and her wife and and her staff and so forth. And I'm like, I appreciate that. I read Willamette Week.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a pleasure to see you again.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.